honoring Officer Sanderson, Badge 435.
Chris started with us when he was 15 years old as an explorer, and he began the Explorer program, and we would use him in scenarios. And he told me then that he was going to be a GPD officer. And so as he got older, he progressed to the Explorer program, eventually being the commander of it. And when he turned 18, he began working for the city of Galveston as a jailer, and he did that until he turned 21 and finally took the civil service test and went through the academy.
Chris was like a big sponge. Any kind of training he could take in, whether you might thought it would relate to his job or not, if it was about law enforcement, he wanted to learn it.
Over the years, Chris Sanderson became known for his ability to try everything. Nothing was off limits. He worked with the Marine Division, worked as a jailer, and as a teenager rode along with Night Patrol. But ultimately, he found his home with the K-9 Division.
Chris had always shown an interest in K-9 ever since I knew him. And when I got a K-9 in 2003, Chris really started coming out and riding with me a lot. I think he was about 17 or 18 at the time. All the education we could give him on K-9, he soaked up. The handling the dog around narcotics, the handling the dog during apprehension work, the handling the dog during tracking. And he told us back then, hey, as soon as I get on the Galveston Police Department, I want to be a K-9 handler too. For him to become a K-9 handler, he tested for K-9, came in first on the test, and was sent to K-9 school. When he got to K-9 school, he tried out several dogs at the school to see which was his best fit. And the best dog they actually had at the school was Abba. It was actually the personal dog of the people who owned the K-9 school. They saw how well Chris worked with Abba, and they decided to sell Abba to the city. And Chris has been partnered with her ever since. And they've done fantastic work. They've made a lot of apprehensions. They've gotten a lot of narcotics. She did really good tracking work. She did very well with obedience, and they worked very, very well together.
During his time as an officer, Chris had the opportunity to move on to other cities and organizations, but never once did he consider leaving the department he loved so much. His attachment to the department and this island ran very, very deep.
His grandfather was a police officer, his father was a police officer, his mom works for the city, his brother, sergeant on our police department. Born on the island, he loved this island, he loved the community, he loved service. He was always there when needed.
You know, he came from the community. He knew people here. He had roots here. He would do anything for anybody. For any reason, he would try to help them out. And he epitomized what community policing should be. He came born on the island, grew up on the island, and was here to protect and serve on the island.
I was speaking to a person he threw in jail recently. And it somewhat changed the course of his life by going to jail, but he had no ill will towards Chris. He told me he was just doing his job, and then he felt really bad that he had passed. And when you have people that are arrested by somebody and they really don't have the kindest words to say about you sometimes. But even the bad guys have good things to say about Chris.
Chris put up such a valiant fight for 8 years. So many of our guys on this department have come on within the last 8 years. And we showed them the old pictures of Chris. Well, they've never seen Chris with hair. The only Chris they know is the Chris that's been sick, that's been undergoing chemo, that will go into remission, and then a couple of months later go right back and have to take chemo again. But even in that 8 years, he's done more work than so many others.
He would just, even if you were having a bad day, it wouldn't be bad for long if you were working with him. Because he'd get you fired up. I mean, his enthusiasm and his zeal for the job would just, okay, Sanderson, you know, you're right. You had to get right there with him, you know, because he wouldn't let you sit there and have a bad day. And the brief time that I supervised him on Evening Watch, he was the same way. And you couldn't ask for a better policeman. We had this thing, and every time I would see Chris, I would give him a hand, what they call SWAT, a hand signal. And I'd point to my eyes like, I'm watching you. And he'd go look at me, give me that look, and he said, I'm watching you too, Sergeant Rowe.
It was common for Chris to joke with others and to ease the tension within the department, even when things looked bleak. But he still knew when to be serious. If Chris was going to do something, he was going to do it well, no matter what the cost.
Some of that can be accounted to his tenacity and his stubbornness. He just wanted to do a good job. So Chris came to work every day. He gave us 110% effort, whether he was feeling good or feeling bad. You know, for 8 years of his career, he was battling the big C. And sometimes he didn't feel good, but Chris lived to be at work. This was his life.
He was fair to everyone. Chris had a great sense of fairness. He had a great sense of justice, and he had a great commitment to service of the community.
He wanted to be a police officer. That was his goal from the beginning.
This was what Chris was meant to do.
And he loved the Galveston Police Department. He loved GPD. And that's what I like people to remember about him.
I'm watching you, Chris.